The Ford Bronco is marking its 60th anniversary. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. With us from Ford is Archives and Heritage Brand Manager Ted Ryan. Great to see you again, Ted.
Thanks for having me on, Fred. I always love talking to you.
Well, this is a fun one. This is the month when the world got its first look at the Ford Bronco 60 years ago. Take us back in time.
Well, I love what happened at that time too, because first you had the Mustang introduced in 1964, and then Don Fry, who was Lee Iacocca's right-hand man and in charge of the new product development like that, announced that another pony was entering the stable as we introduced the Bronco. And then they had a real-life kind of rodeo in Michigan where the reporters were all given Broncos and it was rodeo theme setting all around them, and they got in their Broncos and they drove off. So the stalwart Bronco is turning 60 this August.
And this was really, I think, the birth of the sport utility vehicle in many ways.
It was the birth of the term. I always want to be careful in that because the Jeep CJ5 was out there, and International the Land Rover was out there. So there were other vehicles out there, but what Ford did was we were the first to coin that term, sport utility vehicle. And the Bronco was different in that the Jeep CJ5 was about as bumpy and uncomfortable as humanly possible. And our market research at the time, we actually have the reports that said, while many of the veterans who came back from World War II enjoyed the nostalgia of the Jeep, they don't like the bumps of the Jeep. So we actually designed a vehicle in the Bronco that was great for on-road and off-road. And our very first ad showed a woman pulling up into a grocery store in her Bronco, showing its versatility as an on-road and off-road vehicle.
And it was being called the GOAT, GOAT, which meant something else other than it does today, right?
It did back in those days. And keep in mind, the same designers that are building the Bronco and designing the Bronco were working on the Mutt, the famous A151, the military Jeep that was used throughout Korea and Vietnam. That was a Ford design, as was the original Jeep was a Ford design. So they had military background, and the GOAT meant goes over any terrain or goes over all terrain. It was a military acronym, and it appeared on many of the planning documents for the Bronco, where they were the GOAT feasibility study from 1962. So we took that same connotation and put it on the modern Broncos. So your drive modes are called your GOAT modes.
And you mentioned the versatility. Initially, there were three body styles, is that right?
There were you had the Roadster, which was about as close to an Army Jeep as you could get. No top, no roof. And then you had the Sport Utility, and then you had the wagon. So over the years, the Roadster was eliminated from the lineup. In fact, it's the rarest of the Broncos out there. There's probably only 200 to 300 still in existence. Uh, but then the classic shape of the Bronco is what came to be, and that was the sport utility. So the wagon was similar to a pickup truck, and then we sold a few of those and a few Roadsters, but the classic Bronco was the favorite body style.
And then in 1983, the Bronco 2 arrives.
Bronco 2, which was a return back to the roots a little bit. Keep in mind with the Bronco that the entire second generation of the Bronco never happened because of the oil crisis. Ford retrenched in the midst of the oil crisis, and the you got the Mustang 2, but you didn't get a Bronco 2, or you didn't get the second gen Bronco. We actually had the drawings that were being worked on. And then as a kind of a mid iteration, you got the Bronco 2, which was a smaller, lighter vehicle. Well, one of my best friends in high school had one and still loves it.
Now, lots of things made the Bronco famous, including O.J. Simpson and that infamous chase.
Yes.
Everybody got a long look at the Bronco.
They did the famous Wimbledon white Bronco. Do you know what? That actually wasn't his. That was his friend's, Al Cowling. They had matching Broncos. So OJ wasn't in his own Bronco, he was in his friend's white Bronco. And I always get asked when I do presentations or interviews, did OJ kill the Bronco? The answer is no. The Bronco replacement program was already well underway because the reverse boomers were coming of age and they didn't want two doors anymore. They wanted four doors to be able to put their kids' gear in the back. So you got the Explorer was actually the replacement for the Bronco, and it was in the works. And actually, one of the early Explorer documents is called the Bronco Replacement Program, and that dates from 1994. So the Bronco was on its way out long before OJ and his slow speed chase.
But today it's back in the stable.
Back in the stable, and its introduction is interesting because I've been at Ford for 7 years. So I lived through the birth of the Bronco, the second Bronco. And I had all the designers in early. And that was where they saw the GOAT mode document into the archives. We invited designers and the marketing people, and they wanted to get the DNA of the original Bronco to be able to introduce something that was, had the spirit of the original Bronco. And so they saw the GOAT mode document and the other factors. So it was a huge success. And now we're excited. We've got a 60th anniversary edition of the Bronco as well.
That's terrific. And I think the actual anniversary is August 11th, if I'm not.
August 11th. August 11th is the actual anniversary. And actually, we celebrated it early and are celebrating it early because it's so close to Dream Cruise and Monterey and everything else going on. We weren't going to get the pure joy of the August 11th. Plus, it's a Monday, which nobody really cares about. Ironically, it's also not ironically, fascinatingly, it's also the anniversary of the Ford Transit in England. Best-selling vehicle in America is the F-150. Best-selling vehicle in Europe is the Transit, and has been for decades. It's, been a very similar path.
Great history, and people can find a lot more history. Tell us where people can go, Ted.
They can go to the FordHeritageVault.com, which is our online resource where we have every single brochure for every single Bronco, Mustang, Transit. We have the Ford Times online there, and we have beauty shots of nearly every single car that we ever produce.
Just
FordHeritageVault.com. Let me give the full URL. It's amazing too, Fred. I just saw the stats for June, and I've seen what's happening in July. We're right at 1.9 million searches again. The site just remains insanely popular with the Ford fans out there.
terrific. Ted Ryan, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having me on.